while your day is winding down. They're just getting started. This is South Coast Tonight with Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow. They've got you covered on all the news of the day, from local issues to politics on both sides of the aisle. This is the place where the movers and shakers come to be heard, to listen, and where they're held accountable. This is South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
Welcome back to South Coast Tonight. I'm Chris McCarthy. As always, Marcus Farrow is here as well. So, Marcus, let me just... we just had one candidate call in on the phone. Folks, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give everybody the opportunity to just make a quick call in, announce you're running,
Yes.
give a contact information for the voters out there.
Yes.
Then we'll get you in like we just had with Sean.
Because Sean had an opportunity to call into Barry's.
Right.
And so I coordinated that with Barry.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can call in and then we'll give you a quick little bit of time. It's not a lot of time, but then we'll have you in for a long form interview.
Yes.
We're just trying to get everybody off on the same level playing field. Just give your website out or your phone number, whatever the hell you want to give out.
Like when Robert Barmley wanted to call in to announce.
Right.
Said call in, and he called in for like 2-3 minutes, announced his candidacy. That was it. And I told him we're going to have him back in.
Right. So we're trying to give everybody some opportunities here. You may not feel that it's enough of an opportunity right away, but don't worry, there's going to be more time.
Well,
for the polar plunge.
Here's how I plan to do it. This is how I plan to do it. I plan to give everybody an opportunity, if they want it, to call in and announce. And then afterwards, I plan have them in for a long-form interview, like a half hour, like we just had Mr. Oliver on for. And then that's during this month in December. And then after in January, have them on again after the campaign's developed a little bit. So everybody's going to get their time. Everyone's going to get their time and their opportunity to share their stories and their platform.
For most of you, we just heard about you.
Yes.
How would we know to have had you on?
Right.
And we're trying to be as fair as possible. I think Mark is being extraordinarily fair.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Because I'm really interested in this
Painfully
race.
Fair, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the format. So if you're a Ward 3 resident, you want to call in and announce, and then we'll have you in for a long form interview. I really look forward to talking with you and hearing what you want to bring to the seat.
But boy, the field is really starting to shape up.
It really is, and I think that you've got
it's getting to really shape up.
I know. It's going to be competitive.
It's going to be very competitive.
Frankly, the last one wasn't all that competitive.
No, it wasn't.
This one's going to be competitive.
If we have to drag you over the finish line, we're going to make it competitive.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an
interesting development, Marcus. This is the first city council election since the advent of this program.
This is the first city council election since the advent of this program, and it's happening after all the
That's why it's truly a special election.
Exactly. That's what makes it special. That's the legal definition of it.
Right.
So, but we'll talk about that more if you want at 508-996-0500. I see some calls on the line. We'll get to them in a second. 508-996-0500. We'll talk about that more. And we'll talk about some other stuff that's going on.
We have that caller calling back. He wanted to talk about a few things.
Ukraine. Yeah, Ukraine. Then he was talking about reparations. It sounded like it would be an interesting conversation. He'll call back. He's a regular caller, and I appreciate when he calls in.
Yeah, I like him.
And so, and this is also the 59th anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. That always brings up a lot of interesting conversation.
I wait all year for this.
Exactly. So we're gonna talk about that as well. So 508-996-0500. We've got some calls on the line. Let's get to them. Good evening.
Hi, fellas. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm not a candidate for the Ward 3 council seat. I just did want to quickly reference something that you spoke of late in the last hour. You mentioned about the golf course and the project.
Oh, yeah, I recognize your voice, yeah.
Yeah, proposed for the course. I think one or both of you mentioned that there's not any support for the project amongst golfers, and I think that's an incorrect perception.
Okay.
2 years ago, in February of 2021, a letter was introduced to the City Council with the signatures of a majority of the members at Wheeling City Golf Course. And as an advocacy letter, our position was that the golf course, no matter what the condition, no matter whether there's a park there or no park there, it should be an 18-hole facility.
Okay.
That's the crux of the matter. In other words, if you're going to have a golf course in the world today, and 75% of the courses in the United States, and the United States has almost half the courses in the world, are 18-hole facilities. They're not, a 9-hole course is not a functional or profitable way in which to introduce golf to any area or to propagate the game.
Okay.
So that was our position. The signatures are on file. It went to the City Council, I think it was in maybe the second or third week of February of 2021, and they put it on file as an initiative petition from residents and interested parties. So to say that the golfers are not in favor of the project, I think is technically not true.
Okay, I appreciate it. I
and the people
corrected.
put their name, and I would say that's very important. They weren't just talking to someone on the street saying they weren't in favor. They were writing their name and address and signing it. And that's a significant elevation of commitment to something rather than just shooting your mouth off on the street corner.
Yes, I remember you were a regular caller to my program a couple of years ago when this program first, when this project first came about. In fact, I always thought you were maybe our former district attorney, but I found out you aren't.
No, I had a lower echelon position in the government.
But I did enjoy our conversation, so I do stand corrected. So you folks are not in favor of the project as it's designed.
I said we're in favor of
an 18-hole
remains
course
at the facility,
okay.
that Hathaway Road facility, whether there's a park there or not, that it should be 18 holes. That's the only way it would be viable.
Okay.
In other words, you wouldn't build half-court basketball courts all over the city. You build full-court basketball courts all over the city because that's the way the game is played.
I still think you're Paul Walsh. But anyway.
No, I do know. I went to school with Paul when I was in elementary school, but I'm not he.
Because you talk just like him. But anyway, it's true. You would not build half-court basketball courts all over the city.
Correct.
You're right. You wouldn't do that.
People build those in their backyards
yes.
because then the facility is more than capable of handling the project, the industrial park end of the project, and the golf course part of the project, okay? Now, having said that, individuals on their own are allowed to have their opinion.
Correct.
Our letters focus specifically on the golf orientation of the project only.
So so as I understand it, the mayor is insisting this will be an 18-hole golf course.
It's the only way. It's the only way that anyone would come in. The present operators have told people that they would not be interested in running a 9-hole course. That's well known.
Right.
Okay, because it's not profitable. You cannot. And even if you ran it as an enterprise of the city, you'd want it to be profitable, and it's not. It would not be profitable as a night. You have leagues that you have to have night leagues on the weeknights, and you have to have open facilities for the schools to play there. It's not a. In other words, the number of 9 and 18-hole courses were equal around 1973 when I began playing there. Okay.
Okay.
The number of 18-hole courses has tripled, and the number of 9-hole courses has stayed the same in the last 50 years. So what does that tell you about the market?
Right.
And you don't have to be a genius to understand
Thank God.
that people do things because they're profitable to them or they're advantageous to them, be continuing as a going concern. Otherwise, you'd have all 9-hole courses around if they were more profitable or more viable than 18-hole courses. Simple as that.
Your voice is going to be important in this conversation because it's going to be coming up regularly when we have these candidates coming through.
And I haven't heard it phrased in a way. Essentially, what you're saying is your advocacy for an 18-hole golf course is in fact an advocacy for this project to meet its full potential.
Yeah, and I'm a golfer, and my interest is in the golf course being a going concern. If you're a golfer, you like to play golf, you need courses to play.
Right.
And there's a dearth of courses around.
Yeah.
There's been no course in this area in the last 40 years that has gone from 18 holes to 9, but there's several that have gone from 9 to 18. Rochester, Lakeville. You want me to keep going?
Please.
And there's a brand new course in Acushnet that wasn't built as a 9-hole course. They didn't build it that way because it wouldn't have made them money.
Right.
Right.
So they don't go backwards. It would be a move backwards in terms of viability of golf in the area. And God knows, New Bedford, with its history in the golf, New Bedford is a capital of the golf industry in the world, and people don't really realize that.
That's a good point.
I mean, when a Acushnet company sneezes, the golf world has a cold.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So there you go.
I'll never
they're
forgive
a huge
Tiger
player
Woods
in the golf business.
I'll never forgive Tiger Woods for abandoning us.
No, but that's been the history of that's a corporate decision.
Yes,
but,
no, I know.
Yeah.
So that's the crux of the matter.
Well, listen, I appreciate your voice on this matter, and so I encourage you to call in as we get these candidates coming through, because I think you can educate them for those who don't know much. This other gentleman, Sean, seemed to know quite a bit about it.
Well, that's good. I'm glad he's interested.
He's a golfer, yeah. And
That's
he lives in the
very good.
neighborhood, yeah.
I think it's interesting, and I think that the viability of the course is what interests people that play golf.
Yes.
And whether there's a park there or not, well, I'm sure individually I had their own opinions, but we didn't explore that. We just explored the idea of the golf end of the proposition.
Hey, thanks so much for your call.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
Appreciate you too.
508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We've got more calls on the line. Let's get to them. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Going on, Mike?
How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Great. Couldn't be better. I just
What do you
want to
think?
let you, I don't call too much anymore unless it's local stuff.
Sure.
And I just want to let you guys know, though, that this show is tremendous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
We appreciate that.
It really is. I haven't heard stuff like this since the real old days when politics in New Bedford was...
When we still had bingo games to campaign at.
Hey, my father was the king of bingo.
I remember.
Everybody at every place.
I remember.
Yeah, that's the good old days. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I find you guys did a tremendous job with the last election. With
Thank
the
you.
sheriff and
Thanks.
all the state rep races. It was fantastic. And the part about it is the knowledge that you allow the people, the voting public, to hear from all the candidates, and you allow them to make their case of why they should be elected. All the cards are out on the table. Nothing's better, guys.
Thank you.
Better.
Thanks. Really appreciate it, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
And I just want to wish you guys a nice Thanksgiving.
You too.
You as well.
Thanks, guys.
You too,
have a
brother.
great
Thanks.
night.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you. That was a nice call. I appreciate those calls.
Look, I really do appreciate it, because he understands what we're doing, and he appreciates it. And I know there's a lot of people out there that do.
So, 508-996-0500 is how you can get on the program. We've got more calls. Good evening.
Good evening, guys. How you doing today?
Good. How
Hey,
you doing?
what's up, Tom?
Well, did I hear Dana is running for Ward 3 again? And is she...
Well, so Dana's a Ward 4 counselor, or was a Ward 4 counselor, but I'm going to say, I can say this because it's out in public. I drove by Dana's house today, because she lives on County Street. So I was driving down. I drove by Dana's house. No,
Right.
I drove down County Street, and I did see a Beth photo sign on her out in front of her property. So
she's still a resident of Ward 4, is what you're saying?
yeah, she's still a resident of Ward 4. As far as I know, she's still a resident of Ward 4.
Well, this is what I think on the Ward 3 race. Whoever it is could be the hero of the city. And by that I mean, if they're willing to step out and say, look, the methadone clinic should be located at the complex in the Hicks Logan area, which is outside neighborhoods, centrally located, and actually sit down and try to negotiate with the gentleman that is trying to get that thing started, so that we can avoid a court case and remove it from the downtown area. I mean, everybody in the city wants that to happen. And if a candidate for Ward 3 is willing to step out and say that, they could turn around and have the biggest fundraiser any ward council has ever had by inviting all the people who have spent their lifetimes building up the downtown area, creating the National Park, supporting the Whaley Museum, the Downtown Action Committee, all of it. and charge them $100 a plate, you'd get 1,000 people there to support. Yeah, this is an opportunity for someone to step forward in Ward 3, and they could be the hero of the city. And that's the way I'm looking at the Ward 3 race.
It's an interesting approach to it. I'm not sure. I'd have to look to see. I think you're right if you say taking on the chin or stepping forward and trying to own the issue might be helpful. You wonder what your opponents in the race would say, though.
Well, that's okay, and you have to begin to develop that tough skin. But it's a heck of a lot better than what the current city council did. Yeah, and we all know that.
Yes,
you know, they blew it, and now this thing could end up downtown. What a shame that would be. You know,
I agree with
you. That's your response to those people that may want to chastise you, saying, "Oh, you're bringing a methadone clinic into Ward 3." Well, guess what? It's better than having it downtown. And that Hicks Logan area has been neglected for so long that and I understand there's potential plans and all that stuff, but there is mill space there, and it's a perfect place. And once these things get started, they're not obtrusive to the public.
No, they really aren't.
The existing ones are run and managed pretty well, as far as I can see. And if there is that need, we as a society should support it, and most people do. I don't think that would be a big negative in the campaign. But certainly that golf guy was real interested. I remember when he came out back when you had the show, Chris.
Yes,
and
yes.
There was like a demand to make sure that the city committed to building whatever holes they lost, they were going to be replaced. I remember that conversation. I thought that was a great idea.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's an important guy, too.
I think his voice is very important in this election because he really understands that issue.
That's right. That's correct. But, yeah, it's going to be an interesting race, and it's because you guys are doing what you do, doing the due diligence. And I ain't blowing smoke at you, but
Thanks,
have a good Thanksgiving. You guys are great.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, so it is going to be. I mean, it comes at a time when that is the central focus of what's going on in the city too. Is the advanced manufacturing campus.
So I do think Tom is right that in the sense that it would be a loss for the whole city to have a methadone clinic at the current proposed location.
Yeah,
that it would be bad for the whole city. Not to add an additional methadone
including the service, the population it is intended to service.
So I think that's a very important part, Marcus, because folks, just if you haven't heard us discuss it before, but the idea to have people queued up, standing in line on one of the busiest roads in our city, being gawked at like animals, right? Like zoo animals. Which is just a natural thing to have happen.
It shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't, but it's the way
it does. Yeah.
It's hard enough to get people to go into treatment, never mind to put them on public display.
So 508-996-0500, we're continuing to get calls, so we will take them. Good evening.
Hi.
Hey,
buddy.
Yeah, just a comment. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you still do. My brother and sister live in the bed. They probably are more up on this, but don't you have a tattoo parlor, liquor store, and a pawn shop? But you can't have a methadone clinic, which is about recovery.
Oh no, we've got a bunch of methadone clinics.
No, there are methadone clinics. There's two methadone. So my understanding is there's definitely two of them. I've talked to experts in the addiction field locally, and they've said that
I think there are 6.
Yeah, so there might be. Yeah, so there are 6. There's probably 2 main ones. But the point is right now. That, and I've talked to addiction experts in locally, and the consensus I think is that this is actually a need that's being fulfilled. There's 2,000 to 3,000 people in the city that are currently receiving methadone treatment, and they're able to access methadone. It is not a growing demand in the city. It's one that's being met. Now, I don't know if RCA, it's the business that they're in, maybe has better numbers on that, and maybe they do. But in either way, I don't think the city is opposed to a methadone clinic, and we're definitely not opposed to another methadone clinic. No. It's the location.
The pure location.
Yeah, I understand the location and the parking because most people drive in.
And that's important to note, too, is that the Zoning Board of Appeals denied it on the basis of its limited accessibility because there is listen, I worked over there. My office was on Union Street for the first couple years of my legal career, and it is incredibly difficult to find parking there.
Right. It is.
And it makes it, I think, perhaps if there's a need for emergency services, difficult to access as well.
I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and look at my crystal ball, and I'm going to go on your side of the argument and say, yeah, if the methadone clinic does go downtown, it's going to become high volume over a period of months. It might dry up the ones that are on the outskirts.
Yeah.
And so what you're going to have is the Walmart of methadone going on Main Street. So I'm looking at it from your point of view. And what you're going to have not a desirable group of people at all.
Listen, I don't want to say
drive in and out. They're fine.
Listen,
you're going to have the ones that are going to be hanging around all day.
No, listen, I want to shy away from saying any particular group of people are more or less desirable than others.
I'm not going to shy away from it because it's reality.
Well, it's not. That's not the. I don't think that's what's any. I don't think that's the central argument being put forward for people who oppose the methadone clinic in the business district of the city. It's not. It has nothing to do with them believing that certain people only have a right to access that area or should be around that area. It's just a matter of, is this the best area for the population that needs methadone to be serviced? Is that Union Street in New Bedford? And I think a lot of people are saying no, and it's not just for the benefit of people who work in New Bedford or whatever, because some certain people are more or less desirable than others. It's actually for the people who are being who need that service as well. That it's not the ideal location for them.
So I actually see it your way.
The reality of it is that
I also interject one point. And This is another segue tinfoil hat comment. The methadone clinic is to addiction and a bad location. Well, let me scrap that. Let's put it straight out there. Tent City can exist where it exists, but a methadone clinic can't. I don't think there's any place in any city for a tent city.
I agree with you.
Okay? I think that's the problem to tackle. At the same time, you're tackling the methadone situation, because I have this sneaking suspicion that Tent City has a drug problem.
Yes, I would agree with you.
Yeah.
The reality of it is that
you take the mop out and clean it up. But if you're going to sweep it, get a bigger rug and just sweep it, because you're not even going to have John Mitchell much longer before he at least scoops them up. So I would be, if I was a Republican, I'd be putting together somebody who's a conservative candidate that just might get some votes. And when that election comes along, I mean, everybody's talking about the one with Dunn right now, but how about the one with the mayor that's going to be coming up?
Well, yeah, we still, I'd asked Mitchell when he came in if he was running again, and he politely declined to answer.
That's right. There's your answer right there. I'm leaving town, baby.
But he's sitting on $200,000.
The thing is he's sitting on 200. He's sitting on $200,000.
Disappearing.
He's sitting on $200,000 of campaign money, and on top of that, there's still a treasure trove of federal money coming in that he can administer, that he basically has carte blanche over if he continues another 4-year term, plus the development of offshore wind, which you might want to see through. So there's reasons for him to definitely stick around, even though he's been around for a while.
And we haven't heard of any formal opponents, any formidable opponents yet. Come on, don't say he reminds you of Jane Swift.
Remember when she
I do.
Everybody loves the women, right? How she got treated worse than human scum, and then she wears the same dress every day, blah blah. And this is a Democratic state, and they did that to her.
Yeah.
And they didn't give her a break at all. Nobody triumphed over the fact.
Well, wasn't she flying her helicopter to North Adams every day?
Yes. Well, not every day, but just on weekends.
Yeah.
Because the kids are sick, she had to beat the Thanksgiving traffic. Isn't it appropriate? I wonder what she's doing this Thanksgiving. But anyway, she took $1.2 million when she left the office, and they were strapped, her and her husband, way out in western Massachusetts.
He was a blueberry farmer.
They started doing shindigs and everything else that was technically political. We're going to form a study, and they had lavish parties. And in order to have these lavish parties, they had to buy elegant furniture. And it was amazing how she spent that $1.2 million and disappeared and vaporized and vanished. And I think that's what's going to happen to Mitchell. He's going to get lost. If you don't become a bureaucrat hiding under the wing of a Healy, it seems to me
I think quite the opposite. I think he's got a political future in front of him.
Yeah.
I think he's just trying to make, discover the roadmap to it, really.
Right.
I don't think John Mitchell is in any way like Jane Swift, really, quite frankly.
Hey. I think you nailed something there. And I'd also like to say, these Democrats who are so liberal and everything, why would they run a Democrat, a loose Democrat, who was mayor of Attleboro, and the guy wins? he wins. He beats a stellar individual who has a record and resume up one side and down the other of accomplishment, and he happens to be conservative. Oh, no, he's a Republican. He happens to be conservative. Oh, he's a Republican. And Markey comes
That's
in
how it is, isn't it?
throws anti-Semitic comments all over the thing. So
Ed Markey, just to clarify, Ed Markey.
So anyway, the
too many
Democrat
Markeys.
wins. And these people are for defunding police, and they're running sheriffs. It's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Well, what's amazing is the voters
They
bought
got
it.
more walls than a prison, and they're against walls in Texas.
All right, thanks for the call.
Thanks for the call, man. I got to take this break. Thank you. About this Ward 3 race and the issues around it, we're seeing a field take shape, and we're seeing now, we had Jake Ventura, who has a really good resume.
Yes, he's a very formidable candidate.
Yeah, a lawyer, was a legislative aide, all of that experience in the Department of Defense and all of that, financial guy. Now you have, you have Sean Oliver, who I think does a good job presenting a more like a sort of a relatability, which in local politics is everything.
Very important.
And Bob Cabral, who's served in the armed forces and has decades of small business experience. Yep. So Kathy Daner, who was a former city councilor herself, she ran in the special election in 2017.
Yep.
So you're getting a lot. And I saw that
Bromley.
I saw that Bob Bromley, who is a
he has a parade for God's sake.
He organizes a parade, yeah, and he's a curator of that Fort Tabor, or was the curator of the Fort Tabor Fort Roger Military Museums on the Veteran Advisory Board, and is a policy analyst in the Rhode Island State Senate, which you need to know your stuff if you have that job. So this field's really taking shape, and I did see I couldn't not see it. It's out there right on County Street, the Beth photo of Ward 3 sign. I think that means she's going to run. I haven't heard anything from her specifically. I've heard stuff, and I planned on reaching out. But I think that means she's probably going to run again. And she came in second in that competitive field last time.
She did. She shocked everybody by coming in second. I like Beth. She's a nice girl.
Yeah, she got
nice woman. Whatever
she got Standard Times Woman of the Year. I think that following year for organizing the Women's March and all of that. So it's going to be. It's going to be a very crowded and competitive field here for Ward 3.
She was appointed by the mayor to the Human Rights Commission, I think?
Yeah, she was, yeah. So
Bob's on the Veterans Committee.
Veterans Advisory Board, and has been for a long time.
So you've got a potential couple mayoral appointments of the same administration.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know if... Ian said he's thinking about coming in and supporting a candidate, which I think brings a lot of votes and maybe some campaign infrastructure as well.
Yes.
So if he does,
Ian has the largest campaign fund outside of the mayor in the city. The biggest one in the campaign.
Morad's got a pretty big one.
I think Ian's bigger though.
Okay.
I think Ian has more money in his campaign account than anybody.
And he's the number one vote getter in the city.
Yeah, and he's got a group of people around him who are involved in campaigns.
Yeah.
So if he lends any of those people out, it could be a significant boost to a campaign. Should he decide to do it?
And I think whoever jumps in next might have that sort of organizational support. You heard Ian say there's another candidate that's going to roll out their announcement sometime soon as well. So I think it's gonna be a very competitive field.
The one thing, Marcus, we haven't heard from yet is Mayor Mitchell interested in backing a candidate.
Yeah, I haven't heard. He had told me when we had him on, he had told me, the types of candidates he's looking for. He's looking for somebody who, who not necessarily who he's looking to support, but the types of people he thinks he wants a city councilor who can obviously do what's called the pothole issues, which is constituent services, responding to potholes and things like that, which is a big part of the job, and navigate the difficulties and complexities of municipal government,
right?
Which you and I know it can be very difficult.
Look, it's a very difficult job. It takes a lot of work if you're going to do it right.
Yes.
In fact, more work than I think the city councils admit to, because they just sound like they were complaining, which we don't want to hear, right?
Yeah.
But if I could snap my fingers and give them a pay raise, I would.
I think so.
Because most of them really earn much more than that salary.
Yeah.
And I think they deserve it, but it's a very difficult thing to say, I want my money.
I mean, you're seeing...
I'll say it for them.
Right. I think they do deserve more money as well. You've seen the Boston City Council increase their pay raise. They're full-time jobs.
Right.
New Bedford City Council should at least...
Plus, they have a staff.
Plus, they have staff.
Right.
They do. They have staff, and you'll see that in the bigger cities that those city councils or assemblies. I think in Chicago it's aldermen. Right?
Aldermen, yes.
Aldermen. They actually have staff. And the city council has the office staff, which do a great job, but these city councilors in bigger places have direct staff.
Right.
These other city councilors, they're basically doing their own thing. They're a one-man show or one-woman show. So it's going to be. I don't
think we need that in New Bedford. The staff.
I don't think every councilor necessarily needs their own staff, and I think that would probably take away from a key component of their public persona.
Right.
I'm thinking of the end who does a lot of that constituent stuff. But I think pay raise. I think they would. I would definitely be supportive of that. I'm supportive of that here in Fairhaven too. I think actually, not saying I should get paid as a member of the Board of Public Works, but I think the Select Board does a lot of work and could get paid more. We gave our town moderator a modest pay raise, but that's really hard work, and I know a lot of people balk at pay raises for government hacks, but they run an entire government.
Listen, the people on the ground at the city council level, at the selectman level, are far more important to your life than the very well-paid congressmen and senators, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, having a bad member of a board of selectmen can really mess up your whole town.
Yes.
City council's less so, but certainly a mayor can mess up your whole city.
Yes.
So it is important who you vote for, and it is important that you compensate them, quite frankly. But I do agree, Mayor Mitchell is looking for someone who he can work with.
Yes.
Right? Someone who's willing to work with him.
Right.
It shouldn't be that difficult.
Should be a requirement of the job.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to be a person who can, I guess, understand the complexity of it, understand the responsibility you have, and be very mature about it.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Mature.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree or even like each other.
Right.
But you have to work
Well, that's
together.
the whole thing is some people are like, they're not friends anymore. Like, I don't really care. I remember, like, there was a whole thing in the Fairhaven, like, the select board members aren't friends. Like, I don't care if they're not friends. They just need to do the job.
The problem with being friends is it's a violation of the open meeting law, quite frankly.
It's a good point.
Right? I mean, not for city council, but for selectmen it is.
It can be.
It can be anyway, right?
It can be.
If you have a three-man board.
If you have a three-person board, you can't talk about any business.
Right.
At all.
And you tell me you're not talking about business, please.
You're always talking about
right?
business.
That's all you're talking about. It absorbs your life. But I think that Ward 3 is going to have an interesting decision to make. From what we're seeing so far, Marcus, it's a bounty of riches.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People, I hope they're going to utilize our program to make the case.
Yeah.
Right? And
I think we've seen, 3-4 candidates who have done that already. And I think it's a direct line, I think, to the people that are going to be voting in this election.
I would say this as a piece of advice. If you're new to the political process and thinking about running, go back and listen to some of the candidates we interviewed in the past.
Yeah.
You're getting a sense of how Marcus operates and how I operate, maybe what our priorities are.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be the ones asking you questions.
Right.
Right. So I don't care what you want to talk about. You're going to talk what I want to talk about. But no, it's not true. I do care what you care about. But the point is that you're not going to get away with not being informed.
Yes.
Right? So
you got to know your stuff.
Please do your homework before you come in, because I don't want to feel like a jerk. But I'm willing to do that.
But I'm willing to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so is Marcus.
I'm always willing to do it.
Right. Yeah. If you think you can come in and get by on platitudes, we're not here for that. Right? We're just not.
So we're gonna take a break. We'll be right back.
New Bedford's News Talk Station, 1420 WBSM.
It's time to.
They know the local issues from the inside out, and they call it like they see it. Chris McCarthy and Marcus Farrow are back with more South Coast Tonight on WBSM.
So
Marcus, in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
I mean, I wait all year for
I'm
this.
really
I know
excited.
you do.
Yeah, I'm really excited
guys,
about it.
And we'll probably do more of it in the month and into next month.
Let's do it.
If we're able to get, we're working on a really cool guest.
We're working on if we can get a great guest. That,
like an unbelievable guest.
Like incredible,
I don't even want to tease it because I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
But one of our regular sponsors has a contact that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he's working on it for us. And it's actually someone I was going to have on the program before I got sick. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I can do it now with Marcus.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to put together a very incredible guest on the Kennedy assassination for you guys. We don't have him tonight. Instead, you just have us. But I know everyone out there has a theory on the Kennedy assassination.
Yes.
It's an amazing topic.
It is an amazing topic. It's one of those things, too, that I think, people talk about Watergate as like the first time people started to mistrust like the powers that be. But I really think the Kennedy assassination's really where it started.
So I've heard this put this way, that the 1950s ended when Kennedy was assassinated.
60s.
The 50s.
Oh, okay. I get it
that
now.
America's innocence, the 50s, ended
right,
when Kennedy got assassinated in 63.
Yeah. I thought I knew you knew when he was assassinated. I thought you misspoke.
No. Yeah. So that America lost its innocence when Kennedy got
because the
assassinated.
50s was, like a time of like great economic growth. Dwight Eisenhower was the president,
Right.
General Eisenhower and all of that. And
The country changed after Kennedy died.
Yes.
Was killed, was murdered.
Yes. And some people think that was, done for that purpose.
Right. It's an amazing mystery.
Yes.
And there's a lot of scholarship on it, obviously.
Yes.
There's a lot we haven't learned.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it, there's still records for some reason.
Right.
That are classified.
They're still, and some of these records that have come out, people are just saying, well, these records were overclassified,
It's amazing. I think please, I don't want to make this about Trump, but if you remember, Trump declassified some documents.
In 2017.
And I remember when they came out, because I really enjoy this mystery.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say enjoy is not the right word, but I read those documents. And as I've said to you before, Marcus, I think it was the first example of the FBI really screwing Trump.
Yeah.
Because within those documents, so he didn't read them before he declassified them.
Of course not.
It was 1,500 pages or something like that. He didn't read those. He just signed them. There were surveillance files on Martin Luther King.
No kidding. Yeah.
Surveillance files of Martin Luther King
That's right.
were given to Trump, and he declassified them.
Right.
That they never should have saw the light of day. I'm talking about the stuff the FBI did.
Because J. Edgar Hoover famously, under Bobby Kennedy, but it's widely reported that J. Edgar Hoover really convinced Bobby Kennedy to authorize wiretaps on Martin Luther King and surveillance on Martin Luther King.
Although Bobby Kennedy was a big fan of that.
Yeah.
That too.
Of course.
Bobby Kennedy was upset because Martin Luther King had some serious former members of the Communist Party around him, and they asked him to get rid of them. When at the White House meeting, the Kennedys said, "Look, we're with you, but you can't have these guys with you." Gave the names, because those Southern senators, Democrats, are going to crucify you and us over it.
Right.
And he agreed. Martin Luther King agreed to get rid of a certain number of guys, and he brought them back. Right. He didn't notify the Kennedys he was bringing them back, and that's what J. Edgar Hoover went to Bobby and said.
Yeah.
You agreed he was going to get rid of these guys, and they didn't. Anyway.
And then they wrote a letter to him trying to convince him to kill himself. And
it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
What the FBI did, right?
It was.
But my point is being
because we're not excusing what the FBI did to MLK.
No. Believe me, I'm not.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that in fact, J. Edgar Hoover's name should no longer be on the FBI at all.
I agree.
The building, right?
Yeah.
But my point being is that the FBI put these files in front of Trump on the JFK assassination that contained surveillance files of Martin Luther King, which never should have seen the light of day.
Right.
Never should have seen the light of day. But now that we've read them, they're right there. They're pretty. It's not flattering, as I think many of our private lives would not be.
Of course.
If the FBI surreptitiously put a bug in your house, and then that file was released to the government, to the public.
There's a reason you need a warrant for that stuff.
Right.
So let's take a break. We'll be right back.
14.
So, welcome back to the show. We're closing out the 8 o'clock hour. We hit a lot of really good local stuff. We got a lot of good local calls on these issues. The Ward 3 City Council race is something we're going to cover from end to end, from now until, well, really, from the time Hugh Dunn announced his resignation here in South Coast Tonight,
right,
to February 28th, the general election. So, and we're going to definitely have a general election debate here. We're going to do all that. We want to, because it's November 22nd, talk about the Kennedy assassination.
And Marcus, I do think also there's a lot of people out there who don't live in Ward 3 who this is going to stimulate their desire to run.
Yes.
Right? They say, geez, if I lived in Ward 3, I'd be running.
Yeah.
But I live in Ward 5, I live in Ward 6, I live somewhere else I want to run at large, whatever, right? So I think this Ward 3 race is going to bring out more general election candidates in the fall.
And depending on what Mitchell does,
yes,
this could open the opportunity for an at-large seat or a ward seat, depending on who jumps in the race. Because you're going to have to give up, if one of the city councilors, wants to run for, and they'd have to, all of them be considered contenders because they're already city councilors,
right,
for the mayoral race, then they're going to have to give up their council seat unless there's a special election. But so it might open up at-large seats. It might open up ward seats.
Could even open up a state rep or two.
Could even open up a state rep or two.
I mean, it's amazing what could happen here.
Yeah, I mean, I could envision a scenario in which Mayor Mitchell leaves or decides he's not going to seek another term, and then Tony Cabral runs,
right,
and then that seat's open, and then you could have. Most of the city councilors are in that district, right? Because it's like Ward 6, 5, parts of 4, and all that. So a lot of them are there and would be contenders.
Let me say this. I think Mark Montigny would have to take a look at it. I don't know if he's interested in leaving the Senate and being the mayor, but I think, again, when something like that opens, it's a new challenge. It's being the mayor is a much broader powers than being a senator or being a rep.
Yeah. The rep to mayor thing happens a lot.
Yes.
Paul Heroux, Marty Walsh.
Yep. Up on the North Shore in Lynn, you have the reps up there.
Cabral obviously did run once.
Yes.
So it's a very common thing. Hey, listen.
Bob Carrere in Fall River.
Right. Yep. Ed Lambert, I think.
Yeah, Ed Lambert, yeah.
All right. So we're going to take this news break, and then we'll be back. This is South Coast Tonight. We're going to talk Kennedy assassination, so call in.